We're a blend of old and new. Here at Red Oxx, we just try to always move forward, but not so fast that we're, leaving our roots behind, which was making high quality products and a good customer relationship.
The following is a Big Sky Economic Development production.
Welcome to The Vault, a Montana-based business podcast where we highlight the people and ideas driving our region forward. I'm your host, Marcel Bruschi.
You're listening to The Vault.
Today on The Vault, we are joined by Jim Markel, CEO of Red Oxx Manufacturing. Welcome, Jim.
Good morning, Marcel.
I also want to say thank you for your service as a veteran, so thank you. Thank you for being here with us. I'm really excited to have you on. We featured you in our Edge of the Plains documentary back in 2021. You've got quite the story, so let's hear it, Jim.
Do you want to talk about Red Oxx? You want to talk about my life?
I want to talk about all of it. I want to talk about you and then what led to Red Oxx, because I think those go hand in hand.
Wow.
Where'd you grow up? We all want to know about Jim Markel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough question. So I was born abroad in Italy to a military family, and we came to the United States when I was about 4 years old. And I believe it was Florida, or maybe, no, it was Georgia. I can hardly remember some of the places we've lived. I counted it out one day, and it's about 18 schools.
Whoa.
Never more than about 18 months in any one location. And as my father switched branches of the service from the Army to the National Guard and eventually to the Marine Corps, you can imagine the different bases you go to, which required moving to a different school. And then had shared custody with my mother, so I would sometimes live with my father, my mother, my grandparents. So
You're kind of all over.
Yeah,
That's
up until I came
remember,
to Billings,
yeah.
I hadn't really settled down. So I came to Billings the first time in the 80s on leave to hunt.
And what brought, was Montana, had you been here before? Was it a hunting destination at the time?
No, my father's last duty station was here in Billings.
Okay.
So he
National
was
Guard?
Marine Corps. We have a reserve unit here.
Okay, cool. Okay.
So he was active duty on the training ran the training for the reconnaissance unit here. And he's, I didn't even know they'd moved. I'd shipped out to boot camp and called home one day and the phone was disconnected. So
You shipped out to boot camp?
yeah.
Okay.
And so that was the kind of thing back in those days, people, didn't have cell phones. You weren't in contact the whole time. You didn't have email. So you just either had a phone book or you remembered your home phone number or your friend's phone numbers.
But what if because I remember that too, but what if your parents are disconnected, they don't take that number with them if they go to a different state?
Correct, yeah. So they left California, which is where I graduated high school, and they moved to Montana, and I had no clue until the first sergeant came and said, "Hey, call home." I'm like, "Where's home?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I says, "My father's a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps." And so he says, "Here." He handed me the phone and a number, and I called Billings, Montana. For the most part, I don't even think I really knew Montana existed back then because I'd never been here. I'd been to Idaho, Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Louisiana, and I'd lived in all those places.
Kind of on the edge of the U.S.
Yeah, mostly around the coasts, of course. And a lot of the bases are there. So living around the ocean and the water was a big part of my life. And I never thought I would live away from the ocean. But, Montana kind of stole my heart when I first came here. And I saw a lot of opportunity here. For example, in 89, when I got out of the service, to live like I was living right across the harbor in San Diego would $1 million.
Then.
Okay. And so if I wasn't going to live on the beach, even though I owed Uncle Sam my room and board, I wasn't going to live in California. So I moved to Colorado, did a year in the mountains, didn't do much but ride motorcycles and hike and hunt.
Yeah.
And by then I'd already been familiar with Montana. My father came down and asked me to move to Billings to get Red Oxx going, and said I wasn't going to do it unless I moved up to Montana and went to college. And
Where'd you go?
Eastern.
Okay. Now MSU, Montana State University, Billings.
Yeah.
And to walk us back a little bit, you said you went into the service. So you moved around a lot. You're in a military family. You're in California. You graduate high school. What was that thought process for you? Did you always think you were going to go into the military, or were you like, well, this might be a fun interesting next thing for me.
I didn't really finish high school.
Okay.
So I joined at 17 and left home mid-year. They just mailed a diploma. They don't care in California. It's like, yeah.
Okay, well, you graduate. Okay, good.
If you got a pulse, they're going to send you your diploma. So, I needed a place to live. And, I wanted to see the world. And the best way to get out when you're young and try to figure things out is to have somebody else pay your room and board. And it was a, great adventure. So for about 5 years, I just basically lived out of a sleeping bag.
And what army, or what, not army, sorry.
Yeah.
What branch
I was
of
in the
military?
Marine Corps as
Okay.
well. So having been around my father's, unit out there, Camp Topeka 1st Recon Battalion, I knew I wanted to jump out of planes and do that sort of fun stuff, high speed.
Adrenaline a little bit.
Yeah, it's
like, let's do that. Yeah.
Quintessential Gen Xer, motorcycles, jumping planes, that scuba diving.
You did it all.
All the fun stuff.
For some, yeah, right? Like kind of risking our life, jumping out of a plane, doing those things.
I guess I never saw it that way. I
Yeah.
mean, in a lot of ways, it's just the adrenaline rush to do things. And, and I think that translates to business well. There's a lot of rushes you get being in business for yourself and creating something and having it hit. And the excitement's there. Mm-hmm. Maybe not quite the same, but it's close enough.
It's still kind of there. So for you, you grew up moving around, but then you're like, I want to keep traveling and doing that. For you, what does travel mean to you?
I really like to learn. So like learning about culture, learning about art, how to make things, how to do things, history, what's new on the horizon. So I was 25 years old before I turned on a computer, and they've now become like a major part of my life. And everybody's like, I don't know. Well, I'm like, you have no idea. I never even looked at a computer until I got into business. So, but I've read a lot of books. So that's kind of the thing,
And so you said you did the military thing. Where'd you go when you were there? I mean, as much as you can talk about.
Oh, yeah. I was stationed off in Okinawa for a year in the what they call the regular Marine Corps, the Fleet Marine Corps. And I was with the Landing Support Battalion. And so we did air delivery. So dropping stuff out of airplanes and following it out on remote islands in Korea, around Okinawa, Philippines, Guam, all over down that way. And I had a pretty good set of lungs on me. And I was at the pool one day holding my breath for extended periods of time for money.
Oh.
Yeah, they're swimming up and down the Olympic pool, and gunnery sergeant caught the platoon up there screaming and yelling and betting on me drowning or not drowning. And he looked at me, it's like, I got just the place for you. So that's how I ended up shipping out over to 1st Recon Battalion back in Camp Pendleton.
And then what'd you do there for those that maybe
I was
aren't
a
as familiar?
parachute rigger, and we rigged birds for parachuting and rappelling and fast roping and sky rigging and all that cool stuff. Love
So
flying around helicopters.
But like, what was a day like? I know probably no day was really the same, but.
Yeah, I mean, an operational day was, could be, sitting on an airfield for half a day waiting for the pilots to get done with their breakfast and, come pick us up,
Okay.
go drop us somewhere. Some days are, we'd take an inflatable boat offshore over the horizon with a compass and little motor and go in at night, try to sneak ashore and not get caught, testing the perimeters around Fallbrook Naval Weapons Station, see how good their security is. It just varied, testing boats. We did a ton of work because the unit was new, First Force Recon, when I was reactivated in 1986. So we did a lot of equipment testing, built up a new paraloft, had a haylock system in there for oxygen, for halo jumping. Yeah.
And what's halo jumping?
High altitude, low opening. So
Okay.
skydiving basically with combat equipment and oxygen coming in, from 23,000 feet. And so there's a whole like lock system that goes with that, liquid oxygen. And yeah, the boat testing we just started to get some rigid hulled boats in. So we're doing trials with those. It was peacetime. So, it was basically getting new equipment and all that. And so I got out in 1989 and took a year off and just bought a motorcycle. And
Where'd you go?
Colorado. Got myself a little cabin that was built before 1900 and no hot water and no heat, but unless you chop the wood, and it was great.
And you lived there for a year, just
Yeah.
kind of
Yep.
figuring out what's next with the motorcycle.
Yeah, just having fun. You're 20. By the time I was 21 at that point. So when you start early, you get a good jump on things.
And so what'd you do after that? You military, a little break year.
Came up here to Billings. Yeah.
And so your dad just liked it and stayed?
Yeah, he'd moved all over with the different services and stuff. And so it was by then he'd bought a home. I think probably the first house I think he ever bought.
Wow. It was Billings, Montana.
Because, he was here for, I want to say 3 or 4 years, and then he just retired. And so by then he'd bought a home, and homes were cheap then, in the 80s. And so he decided to buy a house. He still has it.
Still lives in it?
Still lives in it, yeah. That's where Red Oxx was started.
Mm-hmm. So tell us you said Red Oxx, and he called you home to come and help start Red Oxx. Did he know it was going to be called Red Oxx at the time?
Yeah, he's the one that came up with the name, and the first products we manufactured were ones that he wanted to create, and they were fitness equipment. So we did lifting straps, weight belts, all the soft goods associated with physical fitness and training.
And what, for your dad, after being in the Marines, he's here in Billings, what led him to be I want to create Red Oxx and I want to build these products?
Well, his background as well, he was a parachute rigger, halo instructor. So I basically spent my life around parachutes because he was also a civilian skydiver.
Okay.
So, weekends were spent out at the drop zone. Even as a little kid, I was around parachutes and nylon and paralofts and cutting and sewing and rigging. And so we always just made stuff. Dad would he's the world's worst carpenter. He built a set of cabinets and it was just summer projects or things that he'd get into. He wanted a custom van, but they were too expensive. So we built the interior for the van. And so, I just kind of grew up just doing DIY, what they call DIY now.
Mm-hmm.
And so he built those first straps in the Paraloft. Actually, he built some down at Camp Pendleton. And back when he was, when I was in high school. And what's funny is I walked into the gym, several years later, and I see his work. And I had to laugh, because when I look into log books and things like that at the loft, I'd see his name and then sign my name in there.
Mm-hmm.
But his stuff was in the gym for, years.
Wow.
And then so we started getting contracts with our first customer was Universal Athletics here in Billings.
Okay.
And then when I came on board, I started hunting down and getting sales with bigger companies, Weider, Parabody, Gold's Gym.
Wow.
Yeah. So we were like a white label company, Red Oxx Manufacturing, we were. And then as things started to change in the 90s with offshoring and stuff, we would lose our big clients. So we had Nordic Track was our biggest client ever. And they would, your success is your death. Mm-hmm. You get to X number of units, they take it to China. So I really pushed to bring our brand out to individual sporting goods stores across the United States and Canada. At one point we had 220 dealerships.
Whoa.
And even that it stemmed the tide for a while, but I had to do something different.
And you guys were doing this out of your dad's house?
Oh no, by then
Okay. That's where it started, right? Was it out of the house?
We've moved, eight times.
Wow.
So the factory's the 8th location. So we still have a foot in the 7th location and our 8th location. But we were just down the street there in the metal buildings next to the 1889 brewery.
Okay.
And that was our 6th location. And I tried to buy that building and they didn't want to sell it. So we ended up buying the old Boots, Brims, and Breeches location from Western Ranch Supply.
Okay. And that's where you're in now, is the factory 8. Got it.
Yeah, that's our retail store's there. And then, our factory number 8's over across the street in the old Bearing Supply Company. And that neighborhood's changed in the last, 20 years. I've watched go from dirt roads down there, no sidewalks, a lot of machine shops, things like that, garages, towing yards. And now it's an art gallery, a brew pub, a distillery, our light manufacturing, that sort of stuff. So it's definitely changing.
And I would say a big credit to you guys that it's changing. You guys were early adopters in the Ebird district and stayed and you've developed it. You've pushed and mentored other people to see the vision of that district. I think that you guys see that the potential it has and it's starting to develop. Yeah,
we got involved early. We like to joke, my job at the business is I'm front of the business and Perry's back of the business. So factory, warehouse is Perry. I'm sales
Perry.
Marketing. So Perry was a Navy parachute rigger.
Okay.
And he's a Billings native, born and raised, spent 11 years in the Navy. And when he got out, he came back to Billings. And he was employee number 3.
So you were number 2 and he was number 3?
Something like that,
okay,
yeah. And we had one other employee, I think, between that. So he would be employee 4. So.
And how did he get connected with you guys?
The veterans employment, something with the VA. They, we put in a request and he showed up like a week later.
And there he was, and there he's been ever since.
Fate.
So you guys you're in it, you're early on. The internet's becoming a thing. People are starting, as they're growing, shipping things to have done in China. Then were you continuing to do the like athletic weightlifting?
Yeah, we hedged our bets. I saw where we needed to go, but we couldn't go there immediately. Like I couldn't jettison the Red Oxx brand for the weight training stores and stuff. And then we had a little bit of white label business still doing things for, I want to say 2 or 3 companies, but they were getting ready to go offshore as well. I could just see it. And so when NordicTrack gave me the heads up and said, hey, thanks for the great success, but we're moving it offshore. So I took the last profit from that and I built her first catalog and website, and it flopped.
And what year was this?
That was 96.
Okay, because I remember like catalogs that you'd get in the mail. You were excited. You could see them, see the products. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we just reprinted a catalog.
That's fun.
Recently,
I love it.
And it's done great. We mailed out.
I love a catalog.
We mailed out 5,000 and it did really well. So we're getting ready to do another mailing here this month.
So you started a website. Did you know how, did you do that? Like you said you knew where it needed to go.
Right. So
how did you know, we need a catalog, maybe a website?
The website thing started with a standard static page and some still images, which were drum scanned. So you would shoot on film and those would have to go to a scanning place here in town to digitize them. I mean, we're talking.
That's a lot of effort, Like now you can just drop it.
And I found a firm up in Bozeman to build the first site. And then I worked with a company in Livingston to kind of get it really working. And it had a soup to nuts software system, which is very similar to say Shopify today.
Okay.
They were really, really ahead of their time. Undercapitalized, but a great, great product. Probably like the analogy would be like a gentleman that built a Ferrari in his garage.
Wow.
Even today I look at it sometimes and go, man, he should have open sourced that thing. And it didn't really work as well as I thought it was going to work. Like the magic orders didn't come in. But what it did do is I was on the phone with a gentleman that owned a manufacturing business that made doors. And he bought $5,000 worth of product from us. As I'm on the phone with him in Minneapolis, his manager in California, and another one in North Dakota, they're clicking through the website. And we're on a conference call.
Yeah,
right?
so they can see it.
Yeah, so now we have Zoom calls, right? So we're on a conference call like
way
that.
ahead of your time. Wow. Okay.
And I thought, wow, this is the future. Plus the nature of email and the instant communication thing that I really saw as being growing up the way we did, it was like you had to have a phone number or something like that. And I thought, wait a minute, this connects the world in ways that we never thought of. And so it's a sea change in the fact that big companies had the ability to reach out everywhere through mass communication. But one-on-one communication that works, that gets end-to-end, is almost the same effect. And so I just kind of saw that and thought to myself, yeah, we can reach out from Billings, Montana to anywhere. Mm-hmm. And having been to a lot of those places, I'm thinking this is a lot easier than getting on an airplane or driving in a car for 3 days.
Or trying to find a number to call, which I don't know. I was a little younger at the time, so I can't speak to it in the same way, but were people excited about the internet, or were they resistant? Because then you see it and you're like, this is it. We're investing in this. This is going to be the future, which you bet right. But were there others that are like, no, this is just a fad. This isn't going to work out?
A lot of both, but I would say a lot of resistance within business itself. And that's why the late adoption of, say, larger businesses, like, say, a pizza company, they were late getting to the game. But it's a big lift for them to try to, get 10,000 franchise stores to go onto the internet. So we had a bit of a lead time to get our website out there. And at one point, we were a top internet 500 retailer.
Wow.
From here.
Yeah.
And so, but we were also first adopters. Mm-hmm. So and I see the same thing kind of happening today. And then I saw the cell phone era come along, and I was resistant against the cell phone just because I value my time, and I saw what it was, electronic leash. And now the joke is, I think you've made it when you don't even have to have a cell phone.
Clearly have not hit that yet. So.
Yeah. If people have been arguing differently, but I'd be like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, are you truly free? When your phone's
it's connected to it.
Yeah. And so now it's artificial intelligence. is all the hubbub these days and the doom and gloom that's coming from the AI. I don't really want to see that side of things, I guess, or I don't, maybe it's possible, but half the world doesn't even have flush toilets these days. So how's AI going to take over the world, the whole world? Maybe.
When a lot of them are still very third world.
Yeah.
I mean, America's not, but there's parts of it probably.
Sure.
That we'd be more surprised than we think.
You look at the rural connection initiatives that the last couple governors have done, and out of all the things that happened in Montana over the last 4 decades, rural connectivity is the linchpin. It's funny that it's that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've traveled enough to know that like getting that connection helps. It helps with education. It helps with infrastructure. And there's a lot of different ways it can happen, whether it's a pipeline, fiber optics, or Wi-Fi. Like some of the countries in Africa, they're exclusively running on Wi-Fi, so they just bypass the whole cable era because the continent's gigantic, and then there's all these countries, and then there's natural disasters, and so and animals and things get into the wires.
So why not just go to Wi-Fi? Well, I even growing up in Ekalaka, we didn't have cell phone service until I was in high school.
Yeah.
You're still IM messaging or instant messaging and doing that to connect with your friends because you didn't have cell phone service. And the few kids that had it, you're T9 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. They're not what they are today.
Which is, a big part of what came out of that governor's initiative that I cannot remember. Main Street, Montana. I was part of that.
Okay.
With Governor Bullock. And, one of the big easy wins, per se, would be this rural connectivity, which allows your farmer in Ekalaka to maybe hook onto the YouTube internet thing, and all of a sudden they're rebuilding tractors or something like that. I just found this great thing. They're Big Bud tractor. Remember those things?
Yes, in Havre. Well, I don't remember them, but I heard one of the guys talk about it when we were in Havre.
Yeah.
And I was like, this story is insane.
Yeah. And if you think about it today, if you were to build that same tractor, they're remanufacturing the tractor.
They are. They're doing them again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got sucked into that. And
which for those listening, if you haven't, you should go look it up because they model these big farming tractors, not a little one. They model them off of mining equipment.
They're the largest tractors I believe ever made.
Yes.
And they're
in Havre, Montana.
And they modernized them now with just a little bit of technology that's not proprietary like our friends at a green company with yellow that have made it impossible for you to work on your own gear. And so it's a big middle finger to JD. And so
because you can't pay a technician to get them out to rural Montana to come and fix whatever it is that they need to cut now,
right. Yeah. And
if they're haying or something, they're they got to get that fixed yesterday because it needed to be cut 2 days ago.
And stuck behind a paywall of a computer that won't allow you to get your tractor turned back on unless you put a proprietary filter in that has a microchip in it. God knows, it was just
I mean, there's ways.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's one of the things that that we're here in this economy, in the state of Montana, is having the technology and leveraging those tools and not being afraid of them is how we move forward.
Which is what really propelled you guys forward, it sounds like. So in the 90s, early 2000s, you're on the internet, you were doing these things. And what changed in the company? So you were doing fitness type things.
I looked at a market that had more of a broader appeal. I was in the museum down in Cody, and I look in the display case and I see a backpack for all intents and purposes that's, 7,000 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, we're going to move off to the stars someday, and people are going to put their stuff in a bag, getting on the rocket ship. And so, and at that time, with everything moving offshore, the quality had really gone down. We all talk about it, and it just, I got mad one day. I was out up north near Jordan, Montana, and I tore a rifle case I'd bought in half, basically because it was cold. I thought, wait, this is a piece of junk. I can do better than this. And so that's how we started a broad-based product line of hunting equipment, travel equipment. We focused in on the travel due to a lot of, factors within, let's just say the censorship economy that exists and stuff. So either you go all in on firearms and weapons and things like that, or it's hard to dabble because the algorithm will crucify you. So
Even back then.
Oh, yeah. I suspected it, like I kept thinking like, people looking at me, what are you talking about? I'm like, look at this graph. This doesn't seem natural, and I didn't even know what an algorithm was. I still don't really.
Yeah, well, me neither. But
So anyway, I just thought, okay, let's go mainstream. Let's go everyday carry, durability, function over like style, let's just say, in a lot of ways. There's maybe more stylish bags, but ours have a certain utility style and house style now that we've kind of settled in with robust hardware, heavy duty fabric, domestic sourcing. It's just it kind of like settled into, the ethos of the brand. And then, rather than chasing trends, we're just going to be the trend. And so that's kind of, and you look at the companies that you may admire. I didn't realize it at the time growing up, but my grandfather was stationed in Germany post-war. He had these ugly slippers. And I didn't realize that those were Birkenstocks that he'd brought back from Germany in 1950 or something like that. And, he had them till the day he died.
those Birkenstocks.
Yeah, and they're still a fantastic brand with a lot of brand equity and power and things like that. And build a great product.
And they hold strong through like trends and everything. They're just like a classic brand that holds.
There's a reason for that. Like, you look on our friend's YouTube again and you see how they're made, and they're still made in Germany. And so it's quality. Yeah.
So what was your first bag that you made? Besides the gun bag, obviously.
Yeah, no, the first bag we ever made was a parachute kit bag. So like a miniature version of that, which is still in our product line, those black duffels that we do, the small, extra small. There's 4 sizes of them, but the littler one is like a mock down version of a aviator kit bag.
Wow.
That's the first thing you learn how to make. I made one, I think in junior high or something like that. Like it was in my gym bag. It's still around somewhere.
Wow.
Probably got a pair of ratchet straps in it, Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it in a while, but I think it's in the basement of one of the buildings or something like that. So
that's really funny. My dad still has a bag he'd made in like home ec class in high school too. It's like the blue. It's like a duffel with the white. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine's blue and yellow.
Yeah. See,
San Diego Chargers.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So you made that. And then what kind of like domino effect or changes did you guys start to see like with your products, your marketing, and your facilities?
Wow, it's a multifaceted approach. Being the direct-to-consumer brand that we are, that actually makes our product, that's a double-edged sword, right? You got both sides of the business you have to take care of. And so rather than outsourcing, we've insisted on manufacturing our own stuff. So that's a whole level of expertise you have to gain in becoming a manufacturer. So I leaned heavily on the Montana Manufacturing Extension Center, which is kind of like an ag extension center for manufacturing. And when it first got going, I imagine it had been going for a hot minute, but they didn't have that many engineers here in Montana. So they'd have to come over from Bozeman, and they helped us a lot. They told me what books to read, and a lot of it is, you have to teach yourself. They're not here to hold your hand. But
they'll give you the resources, but you got to do the work.
And they'll come in and help. They help with the value stream mapping, which is something we're back in the midst of again. So it's a value stream map is you chart the course of, the production build of, say, a kit bag. First, you got to cut it. So label on, and we just recently did a maker series on YouTube, which has done pretty well. I think last time I checked, it was 9,000 views on that on tote bag thing that we did. Shows how we make it and how we make it right versus, you can engineer something to be made faster and cheaper, which inevitably cuts the quality of the product. And it's not just the raw materials. It's like it's the way you build it, the way you engineer it. Think of you build a building as cheap as possible, and the first earthquake comes along and it collapses. And that's why they have building standards. So, but there's no building standard for, I believe, a lot of commercial products. Like I would imagine safety equipment has buildings. It does. It has testing and things like that. But even then, they're not like speccing it out.
No.
Unless it's mil spec.
Or it's for certain, like big safety things. Yeah. Otherwise, no.
So then, you learn about manufacturing, and then you had to, on the same side of the other side of the coin, I had to learn about marketing. And so what do you do? How do you manage a brand? Database collection. I mean, oh my God. A lot of technology. We brought a large SQL, what's called SQL Server database, and hooked that up here in Billings, and there was nothing like that in Eastern Montana. Hell, I don't even know if there was one in the state. And so, which meant, we were running on headless software, and before they called it headless software.
I'm like, I don't even know what that
Yeah.
means, Jim. So
Basically,
I'm like, well,
now it's a platform, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is something I wanted to talk about technology a little bit today, because the thing like this, think about, you have a coffee shop that you opened up and it has a cash register or a point of sale system that was proprietary for coffee shops. And then all of a sudden, years later, somebody comes up with a thing called Square. And a new coffee shop across the street opens up and they just throw that thing on the table for $15 a month. Meanwhile, you're paying $1,500 a month for that high technology that runs all your stores all over town. And maybe it's $1,500 a month per store or something like that. So this technology ladder that we see, there's early adopters who you use it and get out ahead, and then sometimes it become like myself, became very entrenched with the technology. It was hard to extricate ourselves from that technology to move to the latest thing for a multitude of reasons. I don't want to bore you with the nerdness.
What are some of those, though, for those listening?
Okay, so there's things like databases that can trap your data, or they quit supporting your infrastructure. Our friends at Microsoft quit supporting Great Plains accounting.
Got it.
Microsoft point of sale. So now you look at trying to move off a very robust point of sale system, and frankly, there was nothing really comparable. It's like they had it, but the model is not robust systems. It's all these microsystems, right? With not the level of sophistication that I'd grown the business with. That's when you get to, enterprise level. And so I was running an enterprise level technology system here in Billings, and, just because I didn't know any better, or just because I wanted to be first, who knows, right?
Yeah.
It's like that was what was available at the time, right? And I wanted to go global. I wanted to, this whole thing to work seamlessly. So everything.
So you were all in.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We were super high tech on one end and then super low tech on the other. We hand built, hand manufactured, handcrafted products.
Really high
Sold
quality.
Sold with this, ninja technology, right, of the time. And now that technology has been democratized in the point where you can go and get yourself a Shopify site that has most of the stuff that our fancy websites had back in the day. Maybe not everything, and it's good enough, So
It makes the sale.
About 2 years ago, we moved to Shopify, and that was just moving to our website. That took months, just to say.
Right, because you had a lot of, you had been on this other platform for years. And then to get all of it, I'm guessing they don't make that just hit this button to download to shift everything over kind of, why would they do that?
No. They're
not making the exit easy.
Yeah, we had a firm help us with the migration of the data in the database. But even then, it doesn't put it exactly. It's like moving your house. Great, here's a house. There's a 2-bedroom, 3-bath house. Move it across town. 2-bedroom, 3-bath house. Well, they're different configurations, right? The sofa can't sit there under the window like it did in the other house.
You need a new table. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't work a certain way. So, yeah, we got it done, and it's been about 24 months that we've been on that new Shopify platform. I really like it.
Your website's stunning. I remember the old one was good too, but this new one is
it rocks. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
If you haven't looked at it, it's awesome.
And we've had the same graphic designer for going on 20 years, and we've worked with other partners throughout the years off and on, but our friend Devin's a Billings native, but he lives out in Hilo. So he had been in the Seattle ad game for a lot of years, and he's been a fantastic resource. And that's the thing about having these long-term relationships with your vendors. We typically didn't want to move around a lot because it's like they know the problems that happen. Point of sale systems that are integrated into the website had a lot of issues. Well, Shopify has a fully built-in point of sale. Now, is it as good as the one we had? Absolutely not. Not even close. But it works.
Mm-hmm. So why did you? So, that other one was really good. Are they just kind of done? Or for you, what made, when you're we got to move to Shopify?
Microsoft has pulled support.
Okay.
Right. So here they follow the market, right? And the market has been a lot of small, say, startup type businesses that don't need that sort of robust infrastructure and sophistication. And so if you build the wrong product and the mass, it leaves a big hole in the marketplace, right? The trends are towards, like the little coffee shop we have upstairs here, or I saw Tiffany over here. So at Frey Goods, she's got 2 locations. She doesn't need to be able to scale to 50 locations yet, but when she does, she's going to have a whole technology challenge at that level
because it's just so massive.
Yeah. You're looking at IBM level.
Well, and you guys, you have stuff in store, but a very large online.
We are an online.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've, for the lot of years, I wouldn't say I ignored the Billings market, but we just kind of like were worried that we would saturate the regional market. So we kind of looked past it, and you only have so much time in the day. And so if you're going to spend your time working on a global market or just a local market. So to fix that problem, I built out that event space, which was going to be our factory location. And that becomes our form of local advertising. So, and a lot of other local businesses this last summer have availed themselves to have events there. And
tell us about that space. So it's like right next to the retail where you can go in and buy a Red Oxx bag.
Correct. Yeah. So that was going to be our factory number 8 location.
Okay. And it was just an empty lot at the time.
There
right?
was a couple old houses on there and an empty lot to the north. It's about half a city block. So I tore down one of the buildings, remodeled. I was going to tear them all off and do something.
Because you're very handy too. I mean, I think you talked about your dad like not being as carpenter handy, but you seem very
I do a lot of
handy.
Yeah, I'm pretty handy. Yeah,
like a jack of all trades. Like, do you need it welded? Sure. Cut? Sure.
Yeah, run equipment, things like that. So we basically built an outdoor amphitheater. And we have a couple rental properties. One of them is the Bird, the Billings Industrial Revitalization District. Their offices are located there, which really works for their community outreach because
that's their district.
Yeah, this Saturday they're going to play the Sandlot.
Yeah.
And so that's one of their community outreaches. And it's a free event. So we'll have kids and stuff there. And then next door is the pottery studio, 504 Pottery. And it's like a co-op. And the members just key code in the building. And they're down there all hours of the day and night. And then we have Dalio, the embroidery shop, in our old factory space. And, of course, our retail store. And I kind of gave up trying to be a show promoter. And I've allowed the younger gentlemen like Connor Lorenz from the Club Lux. This year, he's run some very successful events. Had a couple cannabis events down there that did really well, like pushing close to 1,000 people.
Whoa.
And then we just had Wes Urbaniak play last Friday. That was a great night. And Wes gave away a ukulele that he had made.
That's big. Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, this little works of art.
To get that would be like, I'm not musical, but wow.
I couldn't play a tune at gunpoint, but I tell you what, I wanted that ukulele.
You're like, I want it. I'm going to put it up. So what led you to, so you're like, we could maybe put the factory here, but why did you not? And why did you decide to do a community venue? So
it was simple economics. Like what attracts entrepreneurs and artists to certain neighborhoods is low operating costs. It happened in New York with the artists in residence thing. And it tends to happen in city cores that are kind of rotten. And the landlords are like, look, just rent it for something, cover the taxes and a little bit of whatever. So I was doing a market comp analysis and seeing, okay, I'm going to spend several $1 million to build a building from the ground up. It's going to take 18 months. And all of a sudden, it popped up a building for sale across the street. And what's funny is having been in that neighborhood for years, I don't think I'd ever really gone over down into the lower end of, to the east of North 13th.
Why? That's not your,
Yeah. And so anyway, we walked over there, literally across the street, walked over there and walked through the building. And, it was in pretty sad shape. It was getting ready to be like a homeless shelter. And so we bought that. And 11 months later, we had factory number 8 up and running.
Wow. What'd you have to do to the building?
At first it took.
Because that building's really stunning too. We
had to strip it. He started out. So I would be in there ripping the ceilings out with a buddy of mine. And then the crew would come over after like Lunatic and I were in there for 6 or 7 hours ripping things out and just pick up all the mess. I mean, I just like a Tasmanian devil just started just ripping the ceilings down and walls.
I can see that. Yeah.
And so we just tore everything apart and then we would leave and then go home, take a shower. And they would stay and work a couple extra hours and throw everything in the dumpsters. And I'd come back the next day and do it again. So as much as I like to create stuff, I really have a wild destructive streak that just, it's fun.
Gets to come out
sometimes.
sometimes.
Yeah. So then I worked I did a lot of research on energy efficiency. And so I worked on like how to make it operate at a lower cost. One of the reasons we moved from the metal buildings down the street was the energy costs. It was costing so much to heat the building and try to keep it cool and light it because it had no windows or anything like that. So,
and you have big like machines in there that.
Yeah. So we cut the skylights in, did the daylighting strategy so that, the light wells light up. There's an acoustic ceiling, foam insulation, which they said was going to take 7 years to pay for itself, and it did it in 3 because energy costs took a big jump. And so we work during the day, so we get natural light coming into the building at a high rate. I mean, I would imagine that if we worked at night, they'd be like, add more lights. But in every location we'd ever been in before was never enough light. Never. I mean, you could not. And so the light.
And you need the light for what you guys are doing.
Yeah, exactly. Cut and sew. Yeah, you need light. And so, with the heat gain you get from all the light cause you to need more air conditioning. And it's a vicious circle at that point. So I wanted to build a factory that could, be comfortable to work in, good break room, and sustain maybe 2 shifts, let's say, and so that's what we did. We built it out we built out a lot of infrastructure.
You have an eye for unique things that I think most people see as trash or like that's going to the garbage or the dump, which for most people, but you see it and you're like, wow, I could make something really cool out of that.
The manufacturer, credo is waste, right? Waste is the bane. So like all the cut and drops, you try to nest in parts to make other things, or even create a new product to use a void that you weren't using before. So picking things up and remanufacturing them into something else is just kind of second nature. So that's like our whole event salon space is thanks to Pacific Steel, they allowed me to get into their back lot. And I bought several semi-truckloads of iron. And
what kind of iron for those ones? I mean, because you bought some, but like
I bought, let's see, just all the vertical poles or oil case drilling. And we bought a semi-truckload of that. And they pulled up in the yard, side dumped it over. There it was, and cut it up, make it into stuff. So Perry and I, we built a jig because we're manufacturers. So we built a whole like form and all the little tabs and plates, and we just manufactured fence poles, heavy duty ones.
Oh yeah, they're not.
Yeah,
there's no storm.
So that took one whole
those.
summer just to set those poles, and then the next step was the panels. And so the same sort of thing. Go down there and get another semi-truckload of cut sheets of iron
that are scrap. Like, what are they doing with them?
They're grinding them up,
but like,
yeah. And so we laid them up on the welding table, and then, I would cut and Perry would weld, and then I would hang it with the Bobcat and we'd weld it in place. And that took a couple summers. And then the gates, and then we did several events with the pub station that first year.
Yep.
And we figured out that we needed to make some major infrastructure improvements. The walkways needed to be widened, smoothed out. And then we did a ton more landscaping, and I still would like to do more landscaping. I'm not the greenest thumb in the world, so I've been trying to figure out how to win at that. And then, kind of the same sort of like functionality and flow, like at the factory, like how things move through the building, like in a big circle. Same sort of principles apply over at the event space. It's like they come in on the North 14th Street side, they circle through the hospitality side where we have a wood-fired pizza oven, a
that
bar.
You made.
Yeah,
right?
we built that. It was a kit. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I went down to the Restore and got a few things from the Restore, and the scrapyard. There's a big iron wheel that holds that. Yeah, you just see how to put things together.
Bridge, didn't you get some pieces from a bridge too?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Mac and Bridge shut down, and that's how the stage was built out of bridge materials. So it's got incredible acoustics. The deck is 3 inches thick with giant, wood beams it sits on. So it's just musicians just love playing on it.
And that big chain that's in the front that like I don't think any human could ever move.
No.
Yeah.
That's out of one of the mines out of eastern Montana.
But I love all of what you just said, because you've taken all these things that probably were going to get ground up or whatever you do with bridge material when you're ripping a bridge down, but there it's now at your 406 event lawn.
Well, part of it too, in my mind, is like, as we change from a heavy industrial town, which we'll always probably have a high element of heavy industrialization, but what used to be the machine shop across the street is now kind of a car restoration business, or the other garage is a brewery, and now the tow yard is now an art gallery. Those objects that used to sit in their layup yards or be in their shops themselves will never be made again. I've got the meat grinder from the Pierce packing plant that Marty Cannell gave me. It's a housewarming gift.
Whoa.
And it's our point of sale station. I mean, that thing's not made anymore. It's a gigantic piece of cast iron, and that's that circle desk when you walk in the store. And the other part of it's a bird bath out behind the factory. So it's kind of preserving our heritage a little bit. So, yeah, I just don't see those things being made again. Like the Buffalo meat grinder thingy it's called, or something like that.
Definitely not.
Hoboken, New York, or something like that, or New Jersey, wherever the heck it was made. Just super cool.
And where, because you've curated it, built it, like where all these things came from, and you can tell their story.
Yeah, and
within your space.
down there in the pond, we've got that megaphone from the old auctioneer at the Red Lodge Rodeo.
Yeah, like, which is wild, and how many people that touches just by it being from Red Lodge and Rodeo.
Yeah.
Which is wild. So you are such a creator, builder. What do you, what's kept you in Montana, where you guys ship things globally across the country? Like, why Billings as a manufacturer?
If I had to pick a place, and, at least initially when I first looked at Montana, it wasn't necessarily about the place itself. It's more about the access to infrastructure. And, the Industrial Revolution kind of stopped in Minneapolis, right? Like, that's where the last big old warehouses were and things like that, like the really brick ones with the foundries and things like
They're
that.
cool.
Billings had some of that. And as you go further west, even though we do have manufacturing, which is the majority of the manufacturers there are choosing to locate there, but they're struggling with like workforce issues and things like that, and costs, right? The cost of Bozeman compared to Billings and Missoula compared to Billings, to me, it just seemed like a great fit, a good blue collar town.
Mm-hmm.
I like it here. I lived in the mountains, lived up snow to my eyeballs. I don't care for it, and I snowboarded and all that stuff for years. And I like the weather, believe it or not. It's like, and
it's way nicer than the rest of the state. Yeah. Honestly, it is.
Yeah. And I have a passport. When it gets a little too ugly, I'll just get on a plane and leave for a week or two. And that kind of gives me the, I can't take it here. Okay, fine. Last year I went to New Zealand for 3 weeks and had a great trip. It was good camping and exploring and stuff, and took one of my travel buddies that's done, trips with me to Africa and things like that. So Costa Rica. And it's good content for the website, right?
Your bags.
Eat your own dog food, as they say.
Uh-huh. So tell us about your traveling, because you travel all the time.
Not all the time. I've traveled a bit.
But I mean, like, more than most, Jim. Like, you're being humble. Like, you've traveled to some pretty cool and exotic places. And I think, like, what leads you to want to go to, like, Africa, New Zealand, and what are you doing when you're there? Because you're, like, out in some van thing, like, Jeep running through the woods.
Yeah, we've done a lot of overlanding, which has become a whole category now. And then there's the ex-Overland Ranch up in Three Forks now that's opened up, and they teach you how to off-road and recover vehicles and camping tips and things like that. So I've dabbled in vehicles and motorcycles and off-road and built a few trucks and things. And I have to be careful because it'll take over your life,
Traveling?
or traveling in like automobiles and motorcycles. And some people are just, I'm a enthusiast, but not to the point of like it rules my life, because there's so many other things that seem to take that time. But I have to say that, like, the vistas, the views, that's probably one of the things I love about Eastern Montana. It's like this ocean of grass that we live in, and 20 minutes out of town in any direction, it's just spectacular, right? And the further you go, the further you get away from people and problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so certain countries are intrigued by the history, whether you're like in Croatia or.
Croatia's cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's the ocean, the Adriatic Sea. I've love the ocean. I love seafood. So it's history. It's the cultures. It's the perspective you get when you get out of your normal place in life, and that you get to see that everywhere you go, there you are, right? Like, it's, whatever your life is, you're not going to change. It's like, so you go to Guatemala or someplace, and my friend, I was sitting there with a cup of coffee with him one day, and he goes, see that guy up there on the mountain growing onions? I'm like, yeah. He goes, if you moved up there, you'd have a hotel built inside of 5 years. I'm like, he goes, you got the sickness, I'm like, yeah, you're right.
You would.
Yeah.
And it would be a destination.
Yeah. So it's nice to kind of visit and pop into these different tribes and different, because having moved around a lot as when I was younger, I always felt that I was a member of many tribes, whether it was heavy metal, motorcycles, and then, let's just say the opposite of that's a redneck,
Mm-hmm.
Dirt road and a pickup truck and a dog, I'm pretty happy with that too. So, and then lately I've been doing a little bit of, I call it gentleman farmer helper, kind of thing. My brother-in-law has a little place up north, and, I go up and drive the Bobcat around and scratch dirt and dig holes and fix fence and just look at the vistas at the base of the snowy mountains. And it's just, I'm like, I get it, man. It's intoxicating, so when I really, really need to unplug, I travel.
Mm-hmm.
When it the world feels like it's, too hard here, let's just say, and go to some place where a mudslide takes out the mountain, and, they have to rebuild the road, and it takes them 6 months, so they can get truck traffic again.
Yep.
And So yeah, that's kind of really it. That you'll see things and not only seeing the things, but actually learning some wisdom by traveling. That's to me, the like even some of the African proverbs and
Which I don't know a lot of people that have been to Africa. I maybe don't know a lot of people
Yeah.
is maybe what I'm saying with that, but like you've gone a couple, right?
Oh yeah, I've
You
been
go-
there a bunch.
Yeah.
And I would go for like 2 weeks, and then now my minimum trip is 21 days, and prefer to do 30
Why is that?
because you just really start to get into it. It's such a long flight. You just really start to get into it. A friend of mine owns a big ranch. He'll be here later this month,
Oh.
and he's coming in from Namibia, and I haven't seen him since pre-COVID. And I used to go there, and he's like, Jim, if you ever want to move to Africa, he goes, you could have a chunk of land right over there. This place is gigantic. When you think the ranches are big in Montana, this place is enormous. And just had fun, like, doing, cowboying and doing stuff and just having fun in Africa and working. I would take some of his clients out hunting and things like that, and
Whoa.
which is a lot of trust on his part.
Yeah, because you're taking them hunting for.
Yeah, for like gemsbuck and orcs and things like that. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just, but I've done it enough. I'm not saying I'm a professional hunter or anything like that.
No, but you just know where to go. And
I know where to go, and I know the ranch pretty well. And it's not fenced; it's still a wild ranch. So you still, it's still fair chase.
Wow, it's just wild to comprehend from like a fenced in cat. Like there's like structure where when you go over there. it's
Yeah,
just
I mean they
different.
have fences, but not like high fence. So it's
And their
like-
animals are different.
It's 29 species of antelope and then leopards. And I think the really cool thing about Africa is like you're back in the food chain. Like it's legit. Something could get you, whether to be eaten, stung, a snake bit, same thing with scuba diving. I was an avid diver for a lot of years. I haven't been quite some time. But having lived in Florida and California and, I grew up diving and done a few international trips diving in
Wow.
Cocos Island and off the coast of Costa Rica, and did a lot of diving in Okinawa, Guam. But yeah, I kind of miss that ocean a little bit, like to go diving again. So, I kind of transition between like, whether it's outdoor sports or the one thing I, dabbled back in a little bit recently was motorcycles again. And
Oh.
I don't know,
What kind
Just-
of motorcycles?
I did a dual sport trip in Colorado this year. And then I was like, I don't know. I don't think I've, it's at that point in my life, but I did ride around this electric bike up in Three Forks.
Mm-hmm.
It was super quiet, kind of creeping around the ranch on it. I'm like, this is kind of cool, and so it beats the walking, as they say.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So I'm very intrigued by this whole electric, revolution. Not that I wanted an electric car, but an electric bike is kind of, and I've got 3 bicycles. And so, and the same thing happens there. I like getting all excited about biking for the summer, and then I fall off, and I would snowboard in the winter or travel, things like that. So I just kind of, try to stay active.
Always on the go. So what's going on at Red Oxx now? You guys are in the new, right? The new Factory 8.
Yep. So recently with the move, we've been, trying to like rebuild our workforce post-COVID. And so that's been going along. At first it was a little rocky, but it feels like we're getting some momentum. People are coming back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been working on value stream mapping, so reworking our processes. We recently took advantage of a automation loan grant, which brought half the interest rate down on some technology that allows us to cut. And
Which that is a really cool
yeah, the laser
piece of
machine.
equipment.
Yeah.
Like it's wild what it does.
And the underlying thing that's half of it that you don't see is the artificial intelligence, which allows you to get the most out of your fabric. So it calculates the waste and tells you, oh, you're getting 80%. Would you like to try more? So we go 85, 90. If you get, it's hard to get 100% usage, but immediately upon using this thing, we were getting 3 to 5% efficiency gains.
Cool. And you don't have human error. Not that humans mean to, but like if you accidentally like
Oh, sure.
cut
yeah,
a piece of fabric and you cut like too much off, then you have to start over.
or you have to fiddle with it as a it's the tool. Let's just say like the trick of being a craftsperson is not necessarily making everything perfect. It's taking imperfect parts and trying to make them look perfect.
Okay, that's really good. Okay.
So the downstream effects of a perfectly cut part is a standardization that when it goes to the workers, their parts are consistent. And you'd say, well, that's a no-brainer. But with soft goods, it's a soft good for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the laser is able to do things that humanly couldn't do, like cut through hollow fill in a perfect rectangle. Like imagine taking a cotton ball and saying, cut it into a cotton ball into a cube. You might be able to do it somehow.
It'd be kind of hard.
But with a laser, you can definitely do it. And then what else is going on? I've been reworking the content on the website and upgrading all that, graphics.
Which it looks great.
I'm getting ready to do a history piece on some of our cool advertising over the years. So I've been trying to compile like a lot of our old ads and stuff. And it's harder than you think because you're in different formats through the years, and then stuff gets shoved in a drawer, stuck in a file somewhere. Servers crash, you lose things. Magazines you used to advertise with don't exist any longer. I noticed that Photographic Solutions was no longer around, and they did a lot of printing of our posters.
And I don't know, maybe in the time, I feel like I've heard this on some other podcast, but they were just talking about like even like big fashion brands, they don't archive. I mean, I think they do now, but for a really long time, they're not archiving any of their stuff. So it's like, it's out and it's gone when it's gone, where now it's like they're wanting to archive, which I think there's still some of that too from like a digital perspective of like, you get the ad designed, you place it, and then you don't think about it again, right? And it's like, where is it? I want to find it because it's fun. And I think people enjoy seeing like where it was, where it is now.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm working on a content piece for that. I think this week we're doing I had the whole team watch a video that I saw on this company in Lexington, Kentucky that had really over the years had optimized a lot of their manufacturing process. So we're kind of like coming back to the beginning, right? Working on our process improvement, working on our marketing again. We're always working on it, but I think taking a fresh push and a look at it was something we need to do with the rebrand and the relaunch of a print catalog. So we used a great resource here in Montana called printingforless.com. And they printed our brochures for us, super fast and high quality. So it's a blend of the mix of the old and the new. As I was thinking about things to talk about today, this artificial intelligence thing is still in the back of my brain. Like, how are we going to leverage that? And it's not just writing, right? So another thing that it can do is it can analyze, your process and your flow inside of your value-added processes. And that's something that everybody's like, huh? It's like, it matters that things are made quickly and efficiently. And if AI can help you with that, what's wrong with that?
Why not use it?
Why not use it, right? Because it's like,
it frees up time and things for other things.
It also, it helps you communicate a little better. Like if you're looking at compiling information to a team, it's a tool, and if you can use it well, then you should use it. And I get there's also a place there where somebody wants to carve a log into a stool, then with a chisel, then go right ahead. You don't want to use a saw. That's fine.
Live your life, yeah.
So, but yeah, it's kind of, we're a blend of old and new, here at Red Oxx. We just try to like always move forward, but not so fast that we're, leaving our roots behind, right? It's like, you got to keep your eyes on what's current and also still don't forget that what got you there, which was making high quality products and a good customer relationship.
So I have two things. I'll start with one. I sometimes ask too many questions at once. So you guys, there's like all this discussion on tariffs, right? Like, and we talked a little bit earlier about people offshoring things to China, but that's not a problem for you guys, right? Because you tell us about made in the USA.
So yeah, it's, it's a lot of the tariff talk at first. Probably my most outrageous LinkedIn post had something to say about tariffs because they didn't hit us. We sourced domestically. There's a little thing, and a lot of people really know about this. It's called the Berry Amendment. The Berry Amendment requires the United States military to buy American-made, which means sourced, constructed, and built American-made. Without that amendment, this country would have folded. I truly believe that. If you can't make the things that you say equip your troops with, and you get in a conflict with China, it's like, how are you going to march your troops
Why
anywhere?
would you want to be reliant on them?
Yeah, they're like, you're not getting any boots. How about that?
Best of luck.
Come get us. Yeah.
And DOD is a huge buyer of a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So we a lot of our, like the mills that we get our fabric from supply all that camouflage. And so, yeah, tariffs, but then again, the other side of that is equipment. A lot of our equipment that we use is offshore made, and
probably would I be right if I said like Germany, Japan? Is that where some of your main?
And Canada.
And Canada?
Yeah, we've got several large pieces of equipment that came from Canada. Canada has a really unique, like, industrial aspect to it that I hadn't.
I don't know much about. I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't been
Yeah,
yet.
like our
so.
roll handler, our grommet setter. I can't, there's several big ticket items in our factory that came from Canada.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, and I had other machines in the past. We had a thermal forming machine that we used for packaging when we built stuff for retail. It was Canadian made, and it big 3-phase machine, the size of a car, and so yeah, I mean, Canada's been our number one trading partner and is our number one country of export for our brand. So we've got a lot of great Canadian customers who, in a lot of ways get kind of pinched between all this stuff going on. But I think a lot of it's been one-sided for a lot of, I remember nobody cried any tears when they were taking this stuff offshore. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, well, that's progress and, tough luck, U.S. manufacturers. And they gave unfair advantages to offshoring. And then I think as we drained off the majority of the jobs in this country that, that supposedly nobody wanted, and now people are, living and dying lives of despair because there's no upward mobility. I mean, there is upward mobility, but it feels like it's very limited. And now AI is coming for the other half of their, equation. And it's interesting that it went after the creative side first, right? It's like the writing, image generation, all sorts of things, management. I don't think they were expecting that.
No, that's a good point. What do you think, like, with all of this from the past year or so, what are you predicting for the next couple of years, or that maybe are like Americans or like in manufacturing of maybe why we should be a little more reliant on ourselves?
Boy, I hate making predictions like that, but I will say this. I think we need to change the message, the signal, that you look at somebody like Mike Rowe, who does dirty jobs and stuff like that. His whole foundation and stuff is all about, like, getting the word out there that it's okay to be a HVAC person or a plumber.
Yeah, and you make a lot of money because everyone needs you.
Yeah, so these jobs that were not, quote, glamorous, right? I think if in the popular culture, if the signal changes, then the economy will change, because it's, parents want their kids to have a good life. And if you raise your kids up and be like, okay, you can move forward in this, and you don't have to be a doctor, right?
No, you don't.
I've had a lot.
You need those, but you don't all have to be
not
that.
everybody can be a doctor,
Sure
a
can.
lawyer. And speaking, like lawyers, you want to talk about contract law. In a lot of cases, AI is way more accurate than the 90th percentile, And so that's an issue for legalities and things like that. So I don't know. There's the intellectual side of things. We can't rely completely on AI. You still have to have some sort of insight and, logic.
Human component.
Yeah. You're going to see a lot of consolidation if people don't know how to leverage that tool, which means there'll be less, let's just say, jobs that maybe can be done by a machine, which is the same thing that happened during the Industrial Revolution, right?
Yeah.
When they built in, the cotton gin or whatever, it's like the Luddites were like, oh my God, smash the cotton gins and things like that. And the people are, the same sort of thing as sea change is taking place right now. But as we said earlier,
historical.
as we said earlier, or I said earlier, it's like the rest of the world is not as advanced as the United States. So there's a lot of catch up to do. A lot of it's hyperbole, predicting something that's going to happen. It all changes in an instant's notice. Turn off the power. None of that stuff works.
Yeah, if you don't have enough power to generate all of the technology, because AI uses a ton.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not to predict doom and gloom, but you get a big EMP and that stuff ain't going to work. Or a pole switch, who knows what's going to happen when that happens. It's like, might break all the computers. And
It might.
Yeah.
We don't know. We hope not. We're not ready for that. But my other question for you, like kind of on walking it back a little bit, you're talking about historical thing, mixing the old and the new. Tell us about your dad's role now with the company, because it's like you and Perry are running.
Yeah, Dad's been out of the company since 96.
Okay.
Yeah, long time. Yeah.
But he still hangs out, right?
Oh,
like he's
yeah,
still
yeah.
like, isn't he busy doing a lot of projects
Yeah,
and stuff?
that's right. Yeah, he has an office next to mine.
Which your office space is really cool.
Yeah, so he needed something to do. So he's bored, and he says, I'm going to start a business. I'm like, no, Dad, you're not. You're 83 years old. Well, how about you get into a hobby?
Yeah.
So I talked him into doing 3D printing. And so he has a 3D printer next door to me. And then he bought a laser. So now he has a laser and a 3D printer in the office next door. And, when he's can't take it and he's too bored, he comes down and does his 3D printing and stuff like that. I've been wanting him to make a couple things for Red Oxx, but I've been having a hard time getting the software to work the way it wants because it's pretty complicated. The 3D
Oh, I
printing.
can't even imagine.
And that's another, point of like being on the leading edge of things. You now see this additive manufacturing coming about, especially in the metals, things like that, and the CNC automation and stuff, which we don't really do any of, but having that 3D printer there has like changed my perspective a bit on it. Just putting the machine together took me hours and hours and hours, which you start to see the logic behind some of this engineering and stuff. So it's a good exercise to be like, okay, why did they do it like this? And why did they do it like that? The hard parts of software, I think that being able to manipulate those designs in CAD is like, that's still a skill. Yeah, it's just, I tried even scanning a piece I wanted to print. It was just like a nightmare. I'm just like, I just want the part, right?
Okay, just need it made.
Yeah. So, then you say, okay, find me somebody that can give me the design, and then I can feed that design into the machine.
Your dad.
Yeah. Well,
right?
He's having a hard time with it too, because that's the hardest part, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a skill required to just keep the machines up and running, like any machine, right? Like it requires some maintenance and like, it's stuck
being used.
Yeah. And so there's that. So yeah, right now he does a lot of stuff for his art club. He does some laser burns on wood, and then they paint on top of that.
I love that. That's super cool.
It's a whole thing of dogs he's been doing, of course, He works a lot with Q's art down there. So yeah, so he's still kicking around. He came to the concert with Wes last Friday. Asked him to come to the Sandlot. He's like, no thanks. So I guess he doesn't want to see the Sandlot on Saturday.
Or maybe he's seen it. Well, if you haven't, I don't know if he has.
No, he's not seen it.
You guys aren't like TV people.
Not really, yeah.
And then you have like a side hobby, right, of like glass?
I do glass work, yeah. I just a little bit of...
dabble.
In the winter, because it's a good indoor. So I've got a glass fusing operation, and I got a glass blowing in my house. So I did that in Italy. I was traveling, and I have a friend of mine who's an instructor. Mm-hmm. So he's like, hey, come to Italy with us. And so I went to Italy and hung out there and learned some stuff. And the last time I was there, I went and visited the guy I bought some tools from. And so it's kind of cool to have. That's another good reason to travel, is once you make these relationships, you can always circle back through. And then if they come over here, you get to hang out with them as well. Like my friend Thomas will be here next week.
Very hospitable.
Yeah, of course. It's and they get to see your world. Like you go over to some place and it's a completely different life in some place like in parts of Italy where like all the stuff on the island there, Murano, where they bring the gas and gas containers on a boat. They bring everything. Everything comes in on a boat in the lagoon, and they load it on these docks behind the shops, and it's very much the way it's probably been done for 5 centuries. It's just, it's really interesting. It's stuff that some of the stuff they're loading and unloading has changed, right? But the actual act of how it gets to that island and gets off that island, that's not changed.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'd be remiss too. So with your travel and all of that, you guys also did a documentary with our friend Pete Tolton, who does a lot of cool work for you guys. Do you want to give a little plug for that?
Well, so they did a documentary on my father. We took him to Vietnam. They were in there shooting some stuff for us, some product videos, and they overheard Dad and I talking. I'm like, been wanting to go back to Vietnam. So for the 50th, anniversary of that, we did, and they made a documentary of it called Return, which they've played a couple times here in town. And recently, Pete did these makers videos for me, which are like kind of like little mini how-to DIY videos that were on our YouTube channel. And those a couple of them have done really well already. And then some little shorts and things like that. So and that's a long-term relationship I've had with Pete and Stan, going back. So they just like got out of college and stuff. So we helped with one of their earlier documentaries called Makoshika. I don't know if anybody remembers that. So
out of Glendive, yeah.
Yeah. So we've kind of, it's just a long journey. It's just kind of whatever, I guess it's allowed us to explore. The business helps with that, right? Like if it's a platform for you, to earn a living, I guess, in some ways, but in a lot of ways for me, it's been more about learning about life and experiencing life and making a good place for people to work, instead of just just our standard job. Mm-hmm. Yes. I don't know, not to pick on working at one of the fast food restaurants, but that's, I don't know. I mean,
you're helping people with you're impacting their life for a long time, their livelihood, a career for them.
They learn a lot. I think they learn about process, they learn about flow. There's a lot to being a manufacturer, and let alone then you take the other side of it, the marketing side of things. Like there's a lot to being a great marketer, which I think Americans are, we're fantastic at that. We lead the world in style and things like that, and trends. And so we had to have both sides of the equation going at once is a challenge, that's to say the least.
To keep up on, because the world moves so fast.
Yeah, it's hard to balance, especially if you're having trouble on one side, right? You're having trouble in your marketing, you're concentrating on the marketing, and all of a sudden you've done really good on that, and now the factory falls behind. Okay, hurry up, we need more rucksacks, So yeah, we're kind of leaning back towards our factory side and reinvesting in training, and hopefully a little bit of AI to help us along with some of the improvements for process.
Well, and I think the cool part of that is as you're leaning into that, you're doing these Makers Series videos with Pete that you're sharing out on your LinkedIn, YouTube, but then people are actually seeing the behind the scenes. And I think like as a consumer, it's interesting to see how something's made.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of nerd out on that stuff because I like to make stuff.
Yeah.
And so having transparency is what the internet allows a lot, right? So you can let somebody into your factory. You can, bring them to your neighborhood and they can look on the street view and see your spot, and so, if you leverage those things, I think when people say like, I don't want to go there, blah, blah, blah. And then they look and they go, hey, I do want to go there. It's got curb appeal. Yeah.
Well, Jim, it's been a lot of fun to have you on the podcast and to share some of your story. We end each episode with a couple of rapid fire questions. So my first one for you is, what's some of the best advice you've ever received?
The numbers don't lie.
Okay. The numbers don't lie. Okay. My next question is, what is it about travel? And we talked a little bit about it, but what is it about travel that excites or inspires you the most?
Learning something I didn't know before.
Okay. And we talked a little bit about this one too, but you could live anywhere in the world and you could have Red Oxx anywhere in the country. Why Montana?
I like to joke sometimes. I call it the place that time forgot.
I really like that. Well, where can people find you, connect with you, and Red Oxx?
So we can obviously come down to our store at 310 North 13th Street. We've been there for many years. And of course, online at redoxx.com with 2 X's.
And if they want it LinkedIn, you're sharing really cool Makers Series videos that are
I'm on
to watch.
I'm on LinkedIn, and of course we have a Facebook page and things like that. But we're not doing TikTok yet.
Yeah, it's a lot. Which, if someone's like, they're like, oh my gosh, I want to buy a Red Oxx bag, I don't have one. What should their first bag purchase be?
Oh, that's a great question. The PR5, which was our safari bag, which is a carry-on. The rucksack is another great one. Same amount of capacity, about 24 cubic inches, but you put it on your back. A shave kit.
Those ones are really cool.
Yeah. So like those 2 or 3 bags, like if you had a shave kit, a rucksack, or a shoulder bag, you could travel the world. Right? I mean, like
you're good to go.
I've used those bags, a combination of those 2 or 3 units, just as carry-on travel. Some of the larger items and things, like if you're taking camera gear and stuff, like we took a ton of stuff with us to Zimbabwe, which I don't recommend because sometimes it doesn't arrive. And, we were leaving the country when our baggage arrived, what I mean, after 2 weeks, and we were going to Namib. So yeah, just a couple, 3 units right there. And then we have, everyday carry, for like our gator bag, which was like a range truck bag, diaper bag. But our first, say 20 items, so we have about 50 items now. Mm-hmm. Anything with that first 20 items is, probably safe to say. And you don't have to get them all at once. You just get a collection.
Well, you'll get one and then you'll be like, I want the other. And do I want it in the same color? Do I want a different color?
Yeah, that's a big thing with us. We have these 13 colors, right? So it's like,
I think the green's my favorite,
and we have like 3 shades of green.
The dark green, like kind of like the forest green.
The forest green, yeah. Yeah. And then there's of course the cat grizz, we got the the whole burgundy and blue.
Mm-hmm. And they're pretty. Like the cool like tote too if you're like going to the farmer's market or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, Jim. It's been good to talk to you.
Thanks, Marcel.
Thanks for listening to The Vault. Connect with us on Facebook at The Vault at 201 North Broadway or Instagram at TheVault_201. Or check us out on our website, thevault@201.com, where you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter. See you next time.